So in today's video, we're talking about these lenses and one that I don't have anymore because I had rented it, the LAOWA 12mm zero distortion lens. They're all very, very different from each other and they come in at very different price points. So I thought it'd be pretty interesting to go ahead and test them out for photo and video so you can see which one might be a good fit for you, for your budget, for what type of work you're doing, all that stuff. So thanks so much for joining. Now let's get into it. So in order to have a controlled variable, I did keep the settings exactly the same from shot to shot. And to keep the edits consistent, I did the exact same edit on each photo. I didn't try to match them or anything, so that if there are any differences in like color shifts and color representation and sharpness and stuff like that, it's just gonna show up how it is. So when we're talking about real estate, most people are just going to be seeing these things on the internet. They're going to be seeing them on their mobile devices, scrolling through listings and stuff. And for me, looking at it in that scenario, I honestly didn't notice any big, huge difference, except for obviously the 12mm. It's going to give you a wider perspective, have a little more distortion on the edges. There's definitely a bit of softness on the edges on the RF lens that you should be aware of, but when you're looking at this on a mobile device as the whole image, I can't really tell a big difference, and I think most people probably won't tell a big difference unless you're a photographer. So definitely depending on the type of budget and requirements you have, it might not be quite good enough, but if you're just getting started, it's probably going to be fine, and it's probably better than the lens that I started on. And one really interesting thing that I wasn't thinking about before is the length of the lens actually made a really big impact on the overall actual composition. This EF lens with the adapter is like probably 4 inches further into the room than this one. So if you're trying to get into like really, really tight corners, this kind of comes in handy. But for the most part, like colors, sharpness, distortion after applying correction in Lightroom, they seem really comparable, at least in this type of scenario. One kind of weird thing that I noticed about the LAOWA lens must be something to do with how the glass elements work and how it processes it, but all the photos were about a stop darker. So I did bump up the exposure just a little bit to match that in the edit, but other than that, all the settings were the exact same. So I've actually had this RF lens for, I don't know, it might be like 6 months or something. So pretty much right when it came out, I ordered it because I thought it'd be interesting for me just because it's like a really, really tiny travel friendly setup, but also for you guys. Obviously, a lot of you might be considering getting this for real estate work because of the 2.8 aperture for video, and obviously because the price point is insane. It's only 300 bucks. It's so easy to always keep it in my backpack on my camera, ready to go if I'm doing any type of vlog content or behind the scenes stuff. Usually I'll have this and the 50mm in my backpack just because those are kind of my go-tos. But compared to carrying this giant chunk of glass around, this is like weightless. Like it literally weighs nothing. But yeah, being able to have the RF mount, just pop that on the camera, it's super tiny. All right, now we've got the RF lens, and unless there's a lot more distortion on the computer whenever I pull these up that I'm not able to really tell on the screen, it seems totally usable. All right, so same settings. This is the Canon 16-35 2.8, what I normally use. Looks normal. I like it. Whoa. That is always surprising whenever I look at the viewfinder. That 12mm is so wide. Besides this chair, the walls and stuff don't really look distorted. Like they're all nice and perfectly vertical. So it's probably going to get a little distorted if you get really close to stuff. Like right there, it starts to get kind of big. Like that, look at the window. That's kind of weird. But if you're doing like bigger houses and you want them to look huge, this is pretty cool. A couple quick notes about the LAOWA lens. Besides having to be using manual focus and manual aperture, which takes a little bit of getting used to, I thought it was great. Their lenses are super, super sharp, super low distortion, super well made. It's like solid metal. Mechanics in it seem really, really nice. I actually had rented this to test it out on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. video a while back. I'll link that up here. So I was using that on a crop sensor camera, and I also ended up using it on my C200, which I thought the image looked really cool coming out of it. Having that as an option was really fun to use. Alright, so I'm way back in a corner with the RF lens, the 16 2.8, and I've got it focused on the couch. It's an overcast day, so the lighting's pretty even, so we don't have any big hot spots from natural light coming from the windows, but the ISO's at 1200, so we do have a bit of noise on the EOS R, and it looks pretty good. Alright, back to the 16 to 35 Canon L series lens that is $2,000. It looks pretty similar on the viewfinder to me. Maybe the colors are a little different, but so is every single camera that I've ever used. So I don't know how big of a deal that is. Slight color differences might be a little bit of a subjective thing. And for an extra $1,800, I don't know if it's really gonna be worth it, especially if you're just doing a real estate shoot and getting started. Now that's crazy. I promise I didn't move at all, but the sides just got so much more information in the shot. If you're shooting small spaces, this 12mm would be really, really handy. This one probably has the least distortion on the verticals out of the three. With this one, you probably just want to watch out for those distorted corners if you get too close to stuff like this couch. But overall, seems really good. Alright, so not everything is 100% great and comparable on all these lenses, so let's talk about that. Okay, so first off, manual focus versus autofocus. Obviously, that might be a deal breaker for some of y'all. Yeah, it's just super convenient to be able to like touch your screen and not have to be worried about the focus. But on the other hand, manual focus isn't gonna fail you. You can set it and it is what it is. Your camera's not gonna be focusing on the wrong thing. It's just gonna do what you make it do. For some faster paced environment type of shoots, you really need autofocus. But if you don't, like for real estate, you might actually really like using a manual focus lens. I thought it was pretty fun. So the RF lens, definitely the worst build quality out of the three. It's basically like a plasticky material, super lightweight, probably not super durable, but if you're shooting in controlled environments and you're careful, it's gonna be fine. The 16 to 35, obviously super well built, weather sealed, all that good professional stuff. The LAOWA lens, I think it's made all the way out of metal, so obviously that's really heavy duty. I'm not sure about the weather sealing though. I'll put that on the screen and look this up after I film the video. Another cool thing about the RF lens also is that obviously you're not having to buy an adapter, but it does have the click control ring to where you can set it to either be on focus or to be on a control setting, and I typically use that to change my ISO. So that's cool. It's got a little bit of like more high-tech features. Obviously another benefit for the RF lens and the LAOWA lens are the cost. So if you're just starting out and the quality from these samples looks good enough to you, it might really be worth holding off on that super expensive lens. I would also definitely recommend Sigma as an option too. That's what I'm filming on right now. Probably the biggest difference on the quality, I'm sure that they resolve colors a bit differently. The gradient from one color to the next color is going to be a little bit less smooth on the cheaper lenses, especially on the RF lens, but overall they look pretty similar unless you're doing like some giant print. So final thoughts, who do I think these lenses are each for? I think the RF lens, obviously if you're just starting out, if you have an RF full frame camera, it could be a really great way to get started. You could get the RF 16mm, you could get the RF 50mm, so you could get like two lenses and a gimbal for the price of the super high-end lens. So on the RF lens, I think the quality is not gonna be quite as good as the other two, but it's really cheap. So maybe it gets you started, gets you in the door, and then eventually you'll probably want to upgrade to the other one. This lens obviously is really nice to use on a gimbal. It basically doesn't feel like you even have a camera on it anymore. Compared to this one or the heavy duty LAOWA one, it probably knocks off like 3 pounds from your rig, which is crazy. Onto my long-term everyday lens, the 16 to 35. I really like zoom lenses in general because you get a lot more functionality out of it. So even though it costs a lot more, you're basically getting several lenses at the same price. So if you can fit in your budget, I think investing in a really good lens like this is going to be your best buy. But if you're shooting with an RF system, I would recommend go ahead and just get the 15 to 35 RF lens if that's going to be something that works for you long term. But the RF lenses are a bit sharper, a bit faster, a bit more responsive with the whole system. I got this before they had that, so this is what I've been using. The LAOWA lens, I think it's a bit wide, honestly, on full frame for me, but using a crop sensor, or if you have a 4K crop, I think it works really, really well for video, especially for photography too. If you like using manual focus stuff, or if you don't care, it's a solid lens. Not much to say about it. So that pretty much sums it up. I hope this video was helpful. If you're trying to make these big decisions, I know it's an insane amount of thought that goes into it, all the research, all the price searching, hoping to find good deals. But once again, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for being here. If you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And if you've been around for a while, thanks for the continued support. You guys really mean a lot to me. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Peace.